You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am Jon Elmer. This is the Resistance Report for day 566. I'll be covering Yemen coming up, but let's start in Gaza this week. We'll start by showing you an updated map. I showed you this map last week, but the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has updated this map. We are on day 54 of a total siege blockade of Gaza. No food, medicine, medical supplies, no tents, nothing. Nothing has gotten into Gaza for 54 days now, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight to that siege. You can see on this map, the purple zones are buffer zone that Israel has set up. And the orange is displacement orders, so evacuation orders. We have 70% of the Gaza Strip right now is either buffer zone or no-go zones. We have 500,000 people have been displaced just since March 18th, when Israel resumed the war full on. With the 2 a.m. massacre of 400 people, including 170 children, with 80 strikes in less than 10 minutes to announce the resumption of the war. So you can see by that map that Rafah is completely, it's a complete no-go zone all through Rafah. I talked to you about the Morag corridor on the show last week. And of course, in the center, you see the Netzarim corridor. The IDF has taken up to Salahuddin Road, but the western side of the Netzarim corridor is a no-go zone. So it is off limits to Palestinians, and this has been a tightening siege. 1.9 million Palestinians are in need of emergency shelter. That means they're living in tents. And the Israeli military in their field reports continues to brag about this. Nora reported on the destruction of the 40 heavy machinery vehicles from the Gaza municipality. These are the kind of things that Israel has been bragging about in their field reports. In the field reports this week, they talked about how over the weekend, they carried out 150 airstrikes in Gaza over the course of 2 days, which brings the number to 1,400 airstrikes since March 18th, 1,900 people killed, including 600 children. And this is a war against civilians. There's the government health office talked about 37 aid distribution centers and 28 community kitchens being bombed. This is a war against civilians. And Netanyahu said this week that if they end the war today, that the Israeli military has lost the war in Gaza. So they don't believe that they're winning this war against civilians. Otherwise, Netanyahu wouldn't say things like that they lose. And it's not just Netanyahu. There's a significant element of the security establishment that believes that as well. So if we look at the next map, we can see southern Gaza up close. And let me just give you some numbers from this OCHA report that this map is from the humanitarian cluster. 82% of cropland destroyed, 78% of greenhouses, 72% of the fishing fleet destroyed, 95% of cattle destroyed, 70% of the agricultural wells have been destroyed, 450,000 housing units destroyed, 88.5% of school buildings from junior kindergarten through university have been destroyed, 92% of children in Gaza are not meeting their nutritional requirements, their most basic nutritional requirements. 88% of commercial and industrial buildings have been destroyed, 88% of the road network destroyed. This is just an attack on the society of Gaza. There was a number of operations in the south this week by the resistance, but they were pre-planted IEDs and mortar attacks along the Morag corridor that Israel is carving. If we look at the next map, we can take a look at northern Gaza, which has the same story. You can see the Netzarim corridor there is the purple up till most of the coast, and the evacuation zone all the way to the coast. Today, we're going to be focusing on two areas, Tufa, which is the old Gaza City, which is east of Gaza City, and Beit Hanun in the northeast there. In the purple is the buffer zone, and in the purple is overlapping with the no-go zone in Beit Hanun. There was a resistance operation up in that purple zone that we're going to get into today. And the next map, I showed you this in a map last week, the evacuation of the eastern edge of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 and 𝐓𝐡𝐿, and this area is what we're going to start the resistance port on this week. If we look at number 5, we have a series of resistance operations in 𝐓𝐡𝐞 because the military came down off the hill. Like I said, as soon as they went into built up areas, you can see the fighter here with his Yasine in the tunnel. You can see the tunnel, the way the tunnel splits there, which makes it very difficult for the Israelis to take these tunnels. You see a Tandem 85 strike here on a Caterpillar D9 bulldozer made in the United States. Direct hit, the fighter says, I lit it up as he goes back down into the tunnel. This operation was on Saturday and the video came out on Sunday. So we're seeing very prompt command and control, and the systems are working for getting these videos out right away. This fighter in the tunnel is saying that we are advancing to achieve a quick operation against the tyrannical enemy in Jabal Sarani. And you can see these are out on the edge of the built-up areas. We'll see in the next couple operations that they moved in to the city, and as soon as they did that, they were hit. We look at the next one, we can see again, you can see the Tandem 85, so they're still using appropriate weapons. The Tandem 85 is used on the D9, and we've seen these kind of iconic shots from the view of the Archer throughout the war that take you right to the front lines. If we look at the next one, we have a Yasine strike against a 𝐓𝐿 troop carrier. A 𝐓𝐿 is a Merkava tank without its turret. It's heavily armored, so you're going to see the fighter emerge here. He's got his Yasine 105, which is an appropriate weapon for the heavily armored tank. You can see the cameraman here is in the same tunnel as the Archer, as the Yasine Archer, to get this. And the Israeli military admitted that these fighters got home, returned to their base safely, as Qassam would say. The Israeli military getting hit with these operations and unable to defend against them. The next one is against Merkava. So we have the complete set, and you can see the fighter using here the destroyed building as cover. We can see the tank commander's helmet sticking out of the top of the tank there. But this is what the destroyed buildings, this is the devastated terrain warfare that's left behind. And it gives the fighters cover. They don't have jungles or mountains like other guerrillas to use, so they use the destroyed rubble. They use their tunnel network to access the destroyed rubble and carry out a successful operation. We'll see in the next the picture here, you can see the destroyed building. The Israeli military thinks the building is flattened, but the tunnel still exists, and the fighters can come up and use that. We look at the next slide. You can see that they had multiple eyes on this tank. You can see the commander, the crewman, sticking out of the tank there. So as soon as they came into built-up areas, as soon as you see other buildings, immediately they're being hit. So that was in 𝐓𝐡𝐞 in the old city of Gaza. That happened this week. And then this next operation is a remarkable operation in Beit Hanun. You can see the fighters emerging here out of a tunnel. This is called the Breaking the Sword ambush. You can see multiple fighters, as many as 6 in this squad, using the thistle overgrowth of the spring to carry out this operation. They're pointing out here that there's an Israeli military position which is connected to their base inside Israel. So this is in the buffer zone, 300 meters from the fence. You can see this truck. I'll get into that more later, with a truck with the Israeli flag, but now we see the Jeep. And so the fighters have intelligence on this operation and are again using appropriate weaponry, hitting the Jeep. As it comes out of this, you're going to see that the roof is popped off and the hood is popped off, and this Jeep is going to end up flipped on its head as these fighters come out of the tunnel, wearing tactical gear. And this is the Beit Hanun Battalion. So this is the place where the war began in October of 2023. It's also where it ended just before the ceasefire. You can see the fighters there heading back down into the tunnel. This was an operation against the 252nd Division of the IDF, whose job is to clear tunnels in this area. You can see a pretty spectacular failure in their operations and the success of the resistance. So this is an internal road. The Israeli military said that this was an internal road. So this is a road that goes from base to base. And they believe they had this area in the buffer zone cleared, and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is able to use the tunnel network to come out. Maybe we can just loop it around one more time and see it again. It's pretty remarkable how small the hole in this tunnel is, and the way that this is used to access the buffer zone. So now this is a rare operation that's out in the buffer zone, and they've used essentially the spring overgrowth to as cover, like you would in a jungle or in the mountains. They're using the shrubbery as cover, and you can see they're completely hidden there. They pass on the 2 civilian vehicles, which only have a single driver in them, and they're targeting the command vehicle that is behind. And it was, in fact, a command vehicle. There was 3 wounded in this operation. The company commander who's in the vehicle lost their legs in this operation. So 𝐓𝐡𝐞 has intelligence above and below ground to execute this. And then 30 minutes later, after this attack that you're seeing, which is around 1 p.m., about 30 minutes later, the IDF sent a rescue force, reinforcements to come and get the Jeep, and the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 fighters hit that reinforcements that were coming to the scene with a television IED. The TV IED is one of the 4 core IEDs that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 uses in these operations. So a pretty significant operation that was obviously noted within the Israeli media. A lot of generals on TV, the talking heads, talking about this as a defeat, clearly, because they're inside what Israel believes is essentially their own territory at this point, expanding the buffer zone from one base that's on the other side of the fence to a forward position into the buffer zone. And we look at this next picture, you can see just how small the tunnel is that the fighters are coming out of, how difficult it is for Israel to find any of these tunnels. Even the most exaggerated estimate of the Israelis is that they've only been able to deal with 25% of the tunnels, and it's not even clear what that number refers to, because when the war started, Israel said there was 500 kilometers of tunnels. Once they started to experience the battlefield, they said there was 700 kilometers around December of 2023. And into 2024, they're talking about 1,000 kilometers. They have absolutely no idea how many kilometers of tunnels there are. And even if they go back and plug this one offensive tunnel, it's part of a spider webs network that we know from Israeli captives that is a spider web. So they'll just reconnect. And we look at the next picture, you can see in the overgrowth there, they've got full concealment from the spring overgrowth in the milk thistles that they're in there. You can see their tactical gear, and you can see in the upper right corner there's another fighter there, and you can barely see him camoed in the undergrowth. There's an IDF observation post 200 meters away from this. So this is a very tactical the tactical acumen of this operation requires significant intelligence that suggests that the resistance is all over the Israelis, even in this buffer zone area where it's difficult to reach. So a very significant operation. We look at the next slide. This was remarkable to see. So they're using the white pickup truck that's in Israelis' nightmares, but they have this massive Israeli flag on it, and the reason why they have this massive Israeli flag is so that the Israelis don't massacre them in these trucks like they did in Rafah massacred the paramedics in Rafah who came with lights on their trucks. But the Israeli military released the investigation into that this week, and they talked about how that massacre of the paramedics began with an ambush that was set up against civilian police in Gaza, driving in very similar trucks. So this is the Israelis telling each other not to shoot these trucks. So they carry this massive flag, and the resistance, instead of shooting at this soft skinned truck or the truck in front of it with only one driver in it, they wait for the command vehicle. And you can see that in the next slide. It was the command vehicle. It was an M240 Storm, which is an Israeli-made light armored vehicle that you see more often in the West Bank. These are the vehicles they use in the West Bank when they're not using tanks, because you can more easily open the doors to shoot at kids who are throwing stones at you. When they come into Gaza and they're hit in an area that they believe is their control, Israel is operating in this buffer zone as if this is inside Israel proper. And they get hit with an RPG, and it flips their vehicle. And like I said, it was the command force that was hit. The company commander lost her legs in this operation, along with two other people that lost legs inside the vehicle. And then the reinforcements were hit, killing at least one, and 3 more wounded in that. So 6 casualties in this resistance tunnel operation. If we look at the next slide, we can see another operation in Beit Hanun. This is on the edge of town. We see the Yasine archer here firing RPGs at a newly established Israeli military position, pushing in on the edge of Beit Hanun. And here you see him firing multiple times. The same archer grabs a second round, and we're going to see a third archer firing from an elevated position down onto the Israeli position. Simultaneously, they have an artillery unit firing mortars at the position. So the fighters are on the ground in these built up areas. The Israelis just haven't come to these built up areas. This is the first week that they have, and they're immediately hit with those resistance operations in the Gaza Strip. So that is the resistance report for Gaza.